everyone, welcome back to How to Identify a Serial Killer, where we dive into the darkest corners of true crime. I'm Amani.
And I'm Taylor. And if you're new here, we're two teenage girls with an unhealthy obsession with serial killers. But don't worry, it's for educational purposes, right, Amani?
Definitely. And today we're talking about the case that honestly keeps me awake at night. When I researched it, I was like, this is low-key scary, but we're going to keep it pushing. This is the story of Anthony Sowell, also known as the Cleveland Strangler.
Buckle up, folks. This is a deep dive into a life with trauma, tragedy, and terror.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Anthony Sowell was born on August 19th, 1959 in East Cleveland, Ohio. His childhood was anything but normal. Imagine growing up in a house with 14 kids, including sisters, brothers, nephews, and nieces, all crammed up in a small little space.
Sounds like chaos, but it was worse than that. His mother, Claudia Garrison, was abusive. She did physical violence, like beating kids with electrical cords, and created a home environment full of fear and pain.
Yeah, and it wasn't just physical abuse. His nieces revealed years later that Sowell started sexually assaulting her when she was only 10 years old. It's horrifying to think about all the abuse that could have happened in a household that we're just now uncovering.
Absolutely, and it's worth noting that Sowell was pretty withdrawn as a kid. He didn't have any friends, and he didn't seem to connect with anyone outside of his house.
It really makes you wonder, how much of this really shaped him. Do you think that his violent behavior started as a way to cope with what he was going through?
Honestly, it's possible. Trauma has a profound impact on people. But of course, not everyone who experiences abuse turns into a serial killer like Sowell did.
True, and yet he seemed to escape his chaotic upbringing, at least for a while when he joined the military.
Right. So Sowell enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps when he was 18 years old and actually did pretty well. He served for 7 years from 1978 to 1985 and earned several commendations like a Good Conduct Medal.
He even specialized as an electrician. Honestly, this part of his life looks pretty normal. I mean, that's how most people's lives look. He followed orders, completed training, and was stationed in Japan for a year.
But here's the thing, the military didn't fix him. After his honorable discharge, Sowell returned to Cleveland, and that's when things started to unravel.
He struggled with alcohol addiction, couldn't hold a steady job, and he started showing signs of violent behavior. It's like the structure in the military helped keep him in check, but once he was out, he began to spiral.
Makes you wonder, was he battling inner demons the whole time, or did returning to Cleveland trigger something?
I guess that's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it?
It is.
So let's talk about his personal life just a little bit more so our viewers can get more of an understanding. He wasn't married, but he still had an old girlfriend, Lori Frazier. She was actually the niece of Cleveland's mayor at the time. Talk about connections.
Yeah, but their relationship really wasn't #couple goals. Lori described him as controlling and emotionally abusive. She lived with him for a while, but she claimed she had no idea what was happening in that house.
And to be honest, to me, that's pretty hard to believe. I mean, how can you be in the house and have no idea what's going on? And what about Sowell's role in the community? Was he involved in anything?
Probably not. Not really. He kept to himself, worked odd jobs here and there, and he lived in a house on Imperial Avenue, a house that would later become infamous.
Funny how neighbors described him as quiet and unassuming. That just goes to show you really never know what's going on behind closed doors.
Okay, let's dive into some crimes from 2007 to 2009. Anthony Sowell murdered 11 women. His victims were vulnerable, women struggling with addiction, homelessness, or challenges.
He lured them into the house with promises of alcohol or drugs, basically taking advantage of their weaknesses. And once inside, he will assault them and strangle them. The bodies were hidden all over his property, inside the house, in the backyard, and even in the back, there were shallow graves.
Honestly, that sounds crazy to even think that he dug a grave in the backyard. And can you just imagine the smell? Oh my gosh, Amani. Neighbors complained about the stench for years. They thought it was coming from the nearby sausage factory. What kind of sausage smells like that?
But could you even imagine living next to that? Imagine waking up every day and constantly complaining and nothing's changing.
Right.
It's honestly horrifying. And the police didn't even catch on until 2009. Mind you, this started in 2007 when his victim happened to escape.
She was brave enough to go to the authorities, which led police raiding Sowell's house on October 29, 2009.
And then when the police raided his house, they found remains of 11 women.
11 women.
Sowell was arrested on October 31st, 2009.
2009?
He had a 2-year trial. A 2-year run. And he was...
I'm I'm tired. During the trial, his defense tried to argue that he had mental disorders like PTSD and OCD stemming from abusive childhood and military service. First of all, I don't want to hear none of that.
And great thing you didn't want to hear that, because neither did the jury, and the jury was not swayed. In 2011, he was convicted of 11 counts of aggravated murder and sentenced to death.
Sentenced to death. Fun fact, well, not very fun, but Sowell died in prison in 2021 before his death sentence could be carried out. Wow, wow, wow.
Some people may have their opinions on that. So, Taylor, why did we pick this case? Why did we choose Anthony Sowell?
For me, it's the tragedy of the victims. Women were already struggling, and Sowell preyed on their vulnerabilities like a coward.
And to be honest, this case really highlights the systemic failures that we endure as a community. Neighbors reported the smell for years, but nothing was done. And if the police had acted sooner, who knows how many people could have been saved.
It's frustrating, isn't it? How often do we hear about these cases where the systemic fails people who need protection the most? I'm sorry, I meant to say system, but you know what I meant. And it's sad that the system constantly and keeps failing people, so.
Yeah, and to be honest, it really happens too often. Like, it's just a harsh reminder that we all as a community and as people need to do better.
Let's talk about profiling. Did the investigators build one for Sowell?
Okay, so they did, but it was very much late in the game.
Shame on them.
Yeah, he fit the mold of a predator who targets vulnerable individuals, as you can see, and his method was consistent: lure, isolate, assault, murder.
And what about his mental state? Was he ever diagnosed with anything official?
I mean, besides PTSD and OCD, some experts speculated that he had antisocial personality disorder, and it gives us a little bit of insight into his mindset, but it does not excuse his actions whatsoever.
Before we wrap this up, let's share some interesting and chilling facts. Did you know that Sowell's house was demolished in 2011, and the lot was turned into a memorial garden for his victims?
That was a very interesting fact. I love that the community found a way to commemorate the lives that were lost. And another one is Lori Frazier, his girlfriend. She continues to claim to this day that she had no idea what was happening, even though she lived there for a while.
That is so crazy, girl. How you don't remember? You got amnesia. Seriously, this case is full of horrifying details, but it's important to remember the victims and the families.
All right, guys, and that is it for today's episode of How to Identify a Serial Killer. Thanks for sticking with us through this entire case and this tragic story.
And we'll be back next week with a new chilling story. Thanks for watching.
Bye,
guys.
for now. Yeah, girl, so basically
When I had said,
blue equals red.